Hi, this is Eric from the Long Box Review podcast, a comic book podcast. Welcome to the show. I have returning to the show after too long an absence to talk the War of Jokes and Riddles with me, part 2 of this discussion, and I'll explain that in a minute. But welcome back to the show, George of the George and Tony Entertainment Show. Hey, George.
How you doing, Eric? Thanks for having me back. Listen, I appreciate you having me on the show to talk about the Hallmark Channel's Countdown to Christmas movie marathon. You know it's my favorite time of year, and now that it's at the beginning, we can really get in on the ground floor and hit it running.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I know you're a big fan of that too. You mentioned that on your show, or at least in your show notes maybe, quite a bit. So
it's not so much I'm a fan of the marathon, it's that I get upset because it takes away my late night Golden Girls fix for 2 months. That's what it is.
We're getting the highlight reel of George's likes that he talks about on his show. So yeah, so like I mentioned it before at the top of the show, George is back to talk about part 2 of our conversation of the War of Jokes and Riddles. And
wait, we're not talking about the Countdown to Christmas.
He's kidding, I'm out, folks. Because I say that because George and I started this conversation on his show.
Yes.
You want to talk a little bit about that, George?
Yes. Well, thank you, Eric. My name is George Hanna, and I am from the George and Tony Entertainment Show. We're on iTunes, and we're at georgeandtony.com. Eric, you have been kind enough to fill in for Tony plenty of times this year while Tony has been on his self-imposed hiatus. And I think the last time you were on is the time that we did what I will call part 1 of this discussion on episode 185. I've got to say this is pretty much the first true crossover that I've had with another podcast where it literally continued over into another show. I've been on your show before. I've been on another show called The Gaming Marathon on my network where they were on our show, then we were on their show right after, but we never really continued a conversation like you and I are about to do now. Mm-hmm. This is a true crossover event, and I love it.
Yeah.
And nothing will ever be the same again.
We're redefining the podcast universe, George.
We are rebooting the rebirth of rebirths.
We're rebooting the rebirth of legacy.
Yes, yes. And it is going to be a war that's going to be so secret that the crisis will be infinite.
Oh, that was great. Well, you know, this would only be better, George, if we were actually talking, continuing the discussion that we started on your show. If this were actually a crossover event,
that's
but
true.
Alas, it's not. It's just in the issues of Batman. On part 1 of the discussion on episode 185, we talked about issues 25, 26, and 27.
Yes.
And tonight, as we record this, it's tonight. On this episode, we're going to talk about the rest of the War of Jokes and Riddles.
That's right.
We'll see how far we get into this. I don't anticipate that we're going to take 4 hours to do it because as good as this is, as entertaining as this is, there's a lot of summary. There's a lot of exposition,
yes,
so to speak, in this story. But just in case people missed episode 185, and I highly encourage people to go listen to that. Plus, because we talked about more than just those first 3 issues of Batman. There's a lot of other things that we talked about during that episode.
That's true. And may I add one other thing? It's going to be a cross shill, but I want fans of Eric and Longbox Review to not only listen to episode 185 of the George and Tony Entertainment Show, but please, if you want to learn more about Eric, go to episode 182 also, because Eric and I did not talk about comics at all in that episode. So if you want to know the inner workings of Eric, that's the episode to listen to. This is the real down-to-earth Eric. No comics, no nothing. Episode 182.
No. See, without comics, there is no Eric.
I don't know. You're a son of Idaho. That's all I have to say. You're a son of Idaho.
That's right. Yeah. For better or for worse.
Mm-hmm. I do have to apologize before we get into this because I have the Halloween Comic Fest crud similar to Comic-Con crud, but it was at my local comic shop. I think I call it the Halloween Comic Fest crud. So I apologize for any nasally speech that we have right now.
Yeah. Well, the weather's turning cold, and my nose doesn't like that
Yes.
either. I'll spare the folks the details, but okay. But like I said, we talked about those first 3 issues on episode 185 of your show, and so just a real quick synopsis. In issue 24, Batman proposes to Catwoman.
Mm-hmm.
But come to find out, he wants to tell her a story before she gives him her answer. And it's so important to him that she know this about whatever he did, that she knows the truth, the real Batman, the real Bruce Wayne. And that's what the War of Jokes and Riddles is all about. This is telling a story about things that happen in Batman's past that may have some significant consequences, at least in terms of his and Selina's relationship. And along the way, we get not only do we get a war between the Joker and the Riddler, and everybody that they have gotten on their side to help them out in Gotham. But Tom King, for some reason, likes Kite Man, this third or maybe even a fourth or beyond tier Batman villain, and has elevated this character because he's such a sad character. But you really feel some sympathy for the guy for what he's gone through, and that was part of issue 27 that you and I talked about, George, and I really loved that issue. I thought it was in fact, better than the other 2 issues before it in terms of storytelling and in terms of the emotional impact it has. And I think you did too.
Oh, yes. 100%. Part 1 of the Ballad of Kite Man shined. Those first 3 issues, they were great. But out of the 3, that third one, number 27, was my favorite. Yeah.
And in the rest of the issues that we're going to talk about, 28 through 32, we have the Ballad of Kite Man Part 2, or another interlude. That's issue 30. So we'll get to that. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to be really curious, George, if you think that the continuation of Kite Man's story is at the same level as the first part.
Okay.
And in fact, is the Kite Man interludes better than the entire run of this storyline? I'm really curious what you have to say about that.
Okay.
So we're just going to talk about some highlights per issue that we both enjoyed. I have some questions for George. I think he might have some questions for me, and we'll just get right into it. How about that?
Great.
All right. So issue 28. This is I should preface this by also saying the creative team on
Please
this,
let everybody know.
Let's see. So Tom King, of course, doing the script. Mikel Yanin on pencils, inks. June Chung doing colors, and June Chung is amazing. Fast becoming one of my favorite color artists. So, and Clayton Cole's doing letters, and I think that's pretty much the rest. Oh wait, no. In issue 29, well, I'll do issue by issue. How about that? Okay. So let's go. Let's continue on there. So, George, why don't you go first? What are some of the highlights of issue 28 from your perspective?
Well, I've got to say that the whole 5-day battle between Deathstroke and Deadshot, the way it was written was amazing. And this is the thing about Tom King that I like. The way he takes something that could be so simple and be almost a couple of panels or a throwaway. I know he's got to help the artist pace this in a way so that visually it's stunning. I don't know how to describe this to anybody who hasn't read this, but Did I just jump ahead too far, though?
No, go right ahead.
Because that's my favorite part of the issue?
Yeah.
Because that doesn't happen until the second half. I guess we should set the stage for this, though, right? I mean, that wasn't fair of me to just jump into my favorite part, right? Because it's hard to describe that somebody doesn't know the context of why those two are fighting each other for 5 days.
That's true. Go ahead. Yeah.
And actually, this is probably another great part of the issue, where it begins with Commissioner Gordon going to visit each faction, going to visit the Riddler and his gang of rogues, and the Joker with his gang of rogues, and how each of those villains wants Commissioner Gordon to present himself to them, whether it be basically down to his skivvies,
right,
or in Prison Orange, depending on how vulnerable they want to make him at that particular time. And they both say they want the Batman. Is in the end what they say they want in order to give Commissioner Gordon Gotham back.
Mm-hmm.
You're not jumping in? I'm just going to keep going.
Okay, no, okay. So I wasn't sure if you had more to say.
It's your show, man. So I don't want to take it over.
Okay, since we're talking about that part, I just wanted to point out on page 2, there's that scene where Gordon is walking, marching towards his fate, so to speak. What Yanin has done here, I think, is really cool visually, because you have these really long, narrow panels on the page, these 4 panels that just stretch the entire height of the page. And the way that Gordon is drawn, going into the vanishing point of the page, and then if you look at the dialogue boxes, they kind of also stagger down the page, kind of meeting in the middle. Just that, like I said, that kind of the accentuation of the vanishing point on that page, I just think is really, really cool.
And the fact that in one set of panels he's undressing, and in the other one he's dressing,
right?
And they alternate, and you don't know what's going on at first, and you're looking at it and you say, "What am I looking at here?" And you're right, the way it starts and ends, a close up, and the camera pans out as he's in various stages of undress or dress, as the panels alternate between who he's going to go visit.
Yeah. I just
love it.
I don't, whether it's King or Yanin, I'm just going to assume it's Yanin doing this, but just the playfulness on the page. And we talked about this on part 1. We were really praising a lot of the artistic choices on the page of the story, and we're seeing more of that here. Just we get the 2 splash pages where Gordon gets to his destination, facing the Joker and the Riddler and their gangs, and it's like well, it reminds me. I wish Two-Face was a major player in this, because we get these 2 sides of the story, right? And that's been going on so far in this comic, from page 1. We the different panel, or the different the states of undress and dress, and here we are with the full pages, splash pages is what I want to say. It's just a feast to look at on the page, with everything that's going on there. I love this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And putting that huge cast of villains together, just a cast of characters in each of those splash pages. Oh man, it's beautiful. They've got, you and I are process freaks, right? I mean, you make no secret of it on your show. I don't know how much I reveal that on my show, but they've got to work very close together, right? I mean, there's no way that it's left to the artist to do this without Tom King, the writer, saying, "This is how I envision it to look," and then they go back and forth and they work together. It has to be, right?
Yeah, that's what I assume too. But now that you said that, I really wish I would have looked up maybe some interviews they've been doing about this story to see what the process really is, because it's just impressive. Regardless how people are feeling about this story, and I've kind of George, I've read some stuff on Twitter, and and I've read some articles, and I think maybe the reception of this story has been mixed at best, maybe even slightly on the negative side. But so regardless how you feel about the story itself and how it unfolded, the composition of it is just glorious.
Yes. And I'm not on social media that much, and I don't go digging for certain things like you just described. I would be interested to see what I wouldn't quite call negative, but what the criticisms were for this story as a whole, because I may have a few myself, but I think they're the old curmudgeonly type of things that I have about comics in general, as opposed to the story itself or the way it was presented. So I don't like to impose what I think is going on with comics in general right now to a specific story or a bunch of creators, because I don't think that's fair, because they have to work in the confines of what they've got. Mm-hmm. But I would be curious if any of those criticisms went in that direction. So I don't want to talk about those here. We don't want to be negative when you and I aren't feeling the same way, but maybe you could point me toward those and I could make my own curmudgeonly critiques against them and make it more positive.
Well, here, I'll just give you one critique I have on this, the two splash pages here. Uh-huh. So the one where Gordon is at the Riddler's hideout.
Yes.
While cool looking on the page, mm-hmm. the fact that all of these villains are saying parts of the riddle from the Riddler uh-huh. is just kind of ridiculous.
Okay.
When you think about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Come on, Deathstroke is not going to play that game.
Right. You're right.
Right? So, like I said, so we get a little bit of, what do I want to say here? Well, I said earlier, narratively, it looks cool. Some mm-hmm. window dressing, I guess, maybe. Mm-hmm. But underneath that, at the core of it kind of doesn't ring true.
Right.
Or we don't know something. What does the Riddler have on these people to get them to do it? I mean, just think about it logically. The Riddler, he's in charge for whatever reason. All these villains have decided to follow him, mm-hmm. to take over or whatever, to win the war, whatever. And he's like, guys, can you do me a solid? When Gordon gets here, I'm going to start saying this riddle. Here's the riddle.
Right. Here's your line.
Here's your line.
Right. And this is when you have to say it.
Right. Let's rehearse a few times. Let's rehearse it. Because we got to get the timing down.
Oh, man, that's funny. And I'll admit, I didn't even think of that.
That's just, that's just me.
Oh, no, but I love it. I love it because it's absolutely correct.
I kid because I love, it's
I know.
It's mm-hmm. comics. I don't take them too seriously. I just like to be entertained. And this is I think is a very entertaining story, in the pieces and as a whole. So, it's okay. I still love Tom King. I still love, I really love Yanin's work. So.
Oh, me too.
Anyway. So, speaking of Yanin's work, a few more things, if you don't mind, George. No. Artistically, I noticed, I read those first 3 issues. I was trying to recall if I had mentioned this or we had talked about this on the first part of our discussion.
Let me see if I remember.
There's a panel in here where we see Batman for the first time in this particular issue, and Batman's scowling, mm-hmm, which of course Batman does.
That's right.
But the way that Yanin is drawing his downward smile mm-hmm. reminds me of how he's portraying the Joker and his frown.
Yes.
And like I said, I don't remember if we talked about that before, but it really hit me when I was reading issue 28 again in preparation for our talk. Mm-hmm. And again, the duality aspects of this story in general. Here's another piece of that. Mm-hmm. To me, the Joker is this scowling, Batman scowling. They're 2 peas in a pod, but they're opposites, 2 sides of the same coin. All that stuff, right? And yep. I pieces like that, I'm just loving that. And again, I'm thinking, is that Yanin's vision of Batman, or is this some sort of coordination between King and Yanin that's doing this to beef up the underlying story that's going on, the characterizations and whatnot. So I dig this stuff, man.
All right. Maybe it's asking too much, but I would think that if Tom King and Mikhail Yanin were actually listening to our conversation right now, at this point, they might Skype each other and say, "Can you believe the wool we just pulled over these guys' eyes?" They think that you and I are sitting there brainstorming for hours and hours on end and thinking about, Batman and the Joker, we should make them kind of like a mirror of each other, and you better have his scowl look exactly like his scowl. And they're sitting there and they're putting back their beers and stuff going, wait till they see the next thing we do.
You know what, though? That's the great thing about fiction in general is
exactly
is the happy accidents. Yep. It's not always what the author intends, the authorial intent. It's what the reader gets out of it. And that's, I think most authors would tell you that that's the most important thing about their work is what we, the consumers of their work, get out of it.
And that's why people like us can love this, and those trolls that you were talking about before might have a problem with it. Now, on the other hand, I think I would prefer if the creators were listening to us. First of all, I'd prefer if they were listening to us at all. But second of all, if they were listening to us and said, "Uh-oh, they're on to us. What do we do?" And then they send the Bat Ninjas after us.
I kind of think that it won't matter anyway. Either way,
it's not gonna matter.
Yeah,
not gonna matter at all.
One. Go ahead.
You first. No. It's your show.
One more thing about the art. I think in this issue, I'm glancing at my notes real quick, but my God, Yanin and Chung draw a beautiful Catwoman.
Oh my God. In fact, I was just going, that's a good segue because okay. I was going to go there.
that panel.
Yeah.
Where she first shows up. Oh yeah.
We cannot skip over to the Deathstroke Deadpool thing without talking about Catwoman's appearance and why she didn't choose a side. Because she was obviously absent from those two splash pages.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then she appears with Kite Man in a very weird way, but she dispatches of Kite Man pretty much. Mm-hmm.
Poor Kite Man.
Yeah, that's right. And we're not going to give everything away in the book, but I mean, that was a very clever scene to introduce Catwoman into the book and to remind us that Kite Man is at least a part of this narrative.
Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Right. And in that same scene, George, I want to mention this because this comes back later in a different form, but as Kite Man is being recovered by Batman, I'll say, we get these little dialogue boxes of Bruce and Selina talking in the present time to each other. And let's see here. Oh, yeah. Catwoman says, "I knew you were there," to which Bruce responds, "I'm sure." And then immediately after that, we get the two characters in the past repeating basically those same lines. Not basically. They're exactly the same lines.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so what I noticed going through these books again was that King likes to use that narrative device of word echo.
Yes.
People repeating themselves or other characters echoing what other characters have said.
But it's powerful.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. And we'll come back to that at the end of this because it really hits hard in one of the last issues.
Yes.
Okay, so I think at this point in the story we're at the Deathstroke, and Deadshot scene. So
each one of them is a minion of either the Joker or the Riddler, and they've been positioned in a sniper-like way to overlook Commissioner Gordon's rooftop, so that when he puts the bat signal up and the bat shows up, they can get him. But they see each other from across their scopes and they attack each other. And the battle between the two of them goes on for 5 days. And there's a lot of collateral damage. Yes.
5 days. Because Batman keeps saying it. 5 days.
Uh-huh. There's a repetition again. And again, makes it strong and it puts a lot of emphasis and it makes you feel those 5 days, even though it's only a couple of pages and one very beautiful panel of a battle.
Yeah. So the 2-page splash that we get that encompasses basically those 5 days, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's used a lot. that
Yes.
technique that I think it was in the previous issues that we talked about too.
You mean to convey the passage of time in a very short amount of pages?
Passage of time, or even just a lot of action going on in a particular scene. So I was curious what you thought about that, because that's one of the complaints that I had read about was the use of kind of these 2-page splashes to denote that the passage of time, and it was not, I guess, well received. I was just curious what you thought of this, using this technique to do what they were doing with it.
I liked it. In fact, I thought it was different, and I'm trying to think of what would have made these critics happy. Would they have preferred a panel per day? Would they have preferred just the tell me, don't show me kind of thing? Almost see the battles start and then see Batman show up on the 5th day when he catches up with them, and Batman say in his caption boxes, I finally caught up with them on the 5th day, or whatever beautiful prose Tom King would have used. I mean, what would they have preferred? I think that double splash page does the show me, don't tell me. The only telling is that what is happening on this page is occurring over the course of 5 days. Mm-hmm. And I think, I don't know, I think it was a good device, and I think that's what comics are all about. That's what sequential art is all about. Mm-hmm. It was a choice to be made, and I think it was the perfect choice for this book.
Okay, so let me tack onto this.
Okay, so you're going to tell me what the critics said?
No. I mean, okay. That was just, I summarized what I'd read, but
sure.
So we have that first 2-page splash between the two villains, and then you turn the page and you get another 2-page splash, because it's now from Batman's perspective what he was doing during those 5 days. Yes. And so, I mean, do you feel robbed at all that you're getting these two sets of splash pages next to each other in a 20-page comic? Are we losing out? Are we not getting our value out of this book because we got splash pages instead of a bunch of panels on a page?
All right, Eric, this is where we go into the part where I'm the curmudgeon and I talk about comics in general. Do we really want to go there? I'll go there.
Let's go there.
I'll make it brief. All comics are like that these days. That's the problem. Most comics, especially superhero comics, you can read them in 10 minutes. So you figure out the value to your $3.99, $2.99, $4.99, whatever they are, and you measure how long it takes you to read that book. Put that back, for anybody else who's an older curmudgeon like me, to the dense comics that we had back in the 80s when I was a teenager and in my early 20s, in the 70s, where there was a lot of caption boxes, a lot of meanwhile back at the Hall of Justice or whatever, a lot of exposition in caption boxes by some omniscient narrator. The book took a lot longer to read, and it was only 30, 40, 50 cents at the time. So if you do your ratio, what's the term I'm looking for here? Your cost benefit analysis on the books. Every comic you buy today, you read it in 10 or 15 minutes. But there are the rare few that require a rereading. And I think I said back in episode 185 of the George and Tony Entertainment Show that I had to reread the first part of this, Batman number 25. I rarely reread a comic, at least right away. There are times I go back into my box to read something that I read 10 years ago. Very rarely do I reread a book that I just read. And that book I had to reread. Did it take me 10 or 15 minutes to read each time? Sure. But you pick up any other comic on the shelf these days, it's going to take you 10 or 15 minutes to read. The question is, how does it leave you? And sometimes do you have to reread it to make sure you understood everything that you just read, or do you want to get more out of it, or will more come out of the second or even third reading? So yes, I believe that this was effective, and I have no problem with what was done on those 4 pages.
Good. Okay. Yeah.
And that's my manifesto, and I stick to it.
To echo what you were saying about the reread, I'm very happy that I had to reread these books in preparation to talk with you because I did not pick up on some of these things that I am just gaga over in the story, like the word echo, because that comes in. And I'm a word guy. So, things like that really, really resonate with me. And just, being able to appreciate, the little things that Yanine and Chung are doing on the page, and seeing the way that Yanine just, composes the narrative flowing on the page, especially those two, or those double splash pages, there is movement there. It's drawing your eye, and the
flow
colors
is a very good word.
Yeah, flow. Yes, exactly. The colors are just incredible. It's just, so because of our talk, I got to appreciate these books even more. And there is more to it than just Deathstroke and Deadshot fighting for 5 days, right? I mean, that's your basic one-line description of this. And maybe some people out there will think, well, yeah, that's all it really was, with some pretty art thrown on top. But no, you take the issue as a whole, and this is some pretty good work here.
I agree.
So what do you
see how long? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to say, I see how long we've talked about this first part, and we have 4 other issues to talk about. So I'm okay if we move on to the next part of this story.
Okay. Well, I will mention, because this comes in later.
I didn't want to cut off anything else you had to say about the issue. I was just letting you know I'm pretty much ready. I'm done with my part.
Okay. I think I figured we'd talk a lot about issue 28 because it sets up a lot of things to come, right?
That's true.
I hope that's the case anyway. We'll see. But the dispatching of Deathstroke and Deadshot by Batman after the 5 days, right? Batman had enough, and he finally stepped in and put a stop to it. That was another one of those complaints about, it's like, well, it seemed really easy.
Right. Mm-hmm. Especially for who he was fighting.
Right.
Yeah.
So why didn't he step in sooner? But then there's that end page where we find out after the fact that he basically crippled Deadshot. Mm-hmm. Just the severity of the attack that Batman had on Deadshot.
Right.
Like I said, that sets up something that comes later. So I just want to mention that. Okay. Issue 29. Mm-hmm. we might start. Well, we'll see. I'm going to try and breeze through these as much as possible.
Okay. It is hard because we didn't enjoy this story.
Oh no. See, I can't because, okay. Well, we'll see. Issue 29. This issue, was again, Tom King script, Yanine pencils, Hugo Petrus with Yanine on ink, so it's a little different than the previous issue. June Chung still on colors, and Clayton Coles on letters. So this is the 9-course dinner issue.
Mm-hmm. My dinner with Bruce Wayne.
Which I'm like, I never in a million years would imagine you could frame a Batman story around a 9. And it's not even, it's Bruce Wayne. Does Batman even show up in this? I can't remember now.
No, I don't believe so. I'll skim to the end, but I don't think so. Well, okay, with his cowl off.
He is, but it's still Bruce. Yeah, it's more Bruce. Mm-hmm. And that's, I just, like I said, I couldn't believe you could do a thing like this. And the fact that it's Bruce Wayne. We rarely get stories these days about Bruce Wayne and what, his personality, as it's portrayed. I really dug this issue. And again, it seems kind of weird that these villains would go to dinner together, at the behest of Bruce Wayne when, they could kidnap him, all this stuff, right? So there's a little bit of maybe some logic involved here that's kind of ignored a little bit. But the way that Bruce Wayne plays these guys, he even disparages his own other identity at one point, which I mean, Bruce Wayne has done a lot in past Batman comics, trying to play up the fact that, or to hide the fact that he's Batman, right? So I really appreciated that callback that King put in here, and just seeing the course. I mean, you see the courses.
Yep.
And Yanine has to draw them, and it's just I really dug this issue, George.
Me too. But now I'm wondering, since you have some of the haters, what did they have to say? Do you have any bad comments about this one? Because if they had bad comments about the battle between Deathstroke and Deadshot, they must have had a problem with the whole issue being about having dinner.
I don't remember anything specific about this one. So.
Okay, because they did. It's out there somewhere.
I'm sure there's always somebody complaining about every comic out there, but
I'm not one for variant covers, but I do wonder, did any of the variant covers have anything to do with a dinner theme? I'd be curious about that.
Ooh, I don't know. Yeah, that would make a lot of sense, wouldn't it?
Like, I'm trying to think, like maybe a diner spoof, or My Dinner with Andre, or I'm trying to think of famous Neil movies. I don't know.
Yeah, the first thing you said, diner spoof.
Diner. The movie Diner.
Oh, the movie Diner. Okay, so I'm thinking of that famous painting. I think it's a painting where the
Last
people
Supper?
No, not that one.
Oh, okay. I don't know what you go for.
People are in like this 50 styles diner, and you can see them in the distance. I can't remember what that's called now.
It's a Hopper. Let me go ahead. Keep talking.
But how cool would that be if we saw Batman and the Joker and the Riddler in that diner scene from that painting, from that picture, whatever that is. Anyway, that's beside the point.
They recreate so many covers these days. They may as well have done that, right?
Let's see here. Like I said, I really like the Bruce Wayne persona. We get to see him as the protector of Gotham. Because the Wayne, he mentions it at least once in the issue where the Wayne fortune will save Gotham. And I just really like the fact that, it's not just Batman out there that's doing it. Bruce Wayne is part of this equation. And and as I said, he's often ignored in these stories in DC Comics these days. It's, Batman is Batman. Exactly. Bruce Wayne is this mask he puts on every once in a while when it suits him. But here I don't know. I just get more of a sense of Bruce Wayne as an entity and not just a facade for Batman. So I really like that.
Just to let you know, the Edward Hopper painting is called Nighthawks. I don't know how I didn't remember that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
See, what do you think? You putting those characters in that scene? Wouldn't that be kind of cool?
I mean, we've seen so many versions of that famous painting. Yes, I could see that in my head right
now. During the course of this dinner, so King is just putting in stuff.
Yeah.
At the beginning of these issues that resonate towards the end. One of those things is Riddler talking. He's actually trying to deconstruct the Joker and put him down to a large degree as well. Because the Riddler thinks he knows everyone and their motivations and whatnot. He knows how to read people, he thinks.
Right.
And he's so cocky about it. But he does say, in the end, all that matters is the knife and the cut. And now they're talking about, the dish is the fish dish, and they're actually the characters are being shown cutting and eating the fish. Well, they're also talking about cutting and eating, or at least cutting a man's head off. That's what started this whole thing, right? But the idea of, in the end, all that matters is the knife and the cut. That comes back in the last issue of this story. So
yeah,
I'll leave it at that for now.
You know how we said before that part 1 of the Ballad of Kite Man was our favorite part of those first 3 issues?
Mm-hmm.
Taking the way this story was paced was 2 issues. Then you had the Ballad of Kite Man interlude, 2 more issues, another Ballad of Kite Man interlude, and then the other 2 issues. Well, out of the 6 that had nothing to do with the Ballad of Kite Man per se, I think this is my favorite one.
Really?
Yeah, because it's different.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no battle that takes place. Now, there's a battle of wits, perhaps. There's a battle of minds, probably insane minds going on here. But the conversation was interesting, intriguing, and it was compelling. And it caught my attention. And this is another one I had to reread. Not because we were having this conversation, but because I wanted to reread that dialogue. Now, here's the thing. The artwork here is beautiful on all of these books. And I could just take a look at these without reading the dialogue, just to drool over the artwork and hope that one day, if this was not done digitally, that somehow, some way I could afford to buy a page from this, right?
Oh. There's a number of pages from this storyline that I wouldn't mind having, yeah.
And these days, you never know if artists do things digitally or not, so I don't even make the assumption that pages are available anymore. However, these books, especially this issue in particular, number 29, that dinner conversation, I think I could read over and over again and probably pick out all sorts of different things, whether it comes from what it has to do with the story, with as much as it being a tutorial on how to write a good episodic piece of literature, and the pacing to get it within the confines of however many pages and panels that you have. I mean, this right here is almost a master class on how to write an issue of a comic. And Tom King did not pay me to say that.
Yeah, and I mean, it's mostly told from the perspective of people sitting down. There's hardly any action shown on the page, and yet there's so much going on. There's so much conflict and escalation of the situation. It's just so well done. I cannot, I guess, remain neutral on this and try to be like I say, a neutral critiquer because I just love it too much.
And here's the other thing. On my show, what I try to do, a lot of my listeners really don't read comics at all. Some of them have told me that they appreciate the conversations I have with creators or about comics themselves. Some of them have gone out to check things out because they were curious. And some of them just like to listen because they like to hear what the story was. They have no intention of picking it up, just like a lot of people who see the superhero movies have no interest of reading the comics from which those stories came. Like some people who watch a movie, let's say they go to see Gone Girl, they'll never read the book. The Martian, they'll never read the book. This issue of Batman, even though it's right in the middle of a story, I wish I could just give to somebody to read, because while, okay, you may not necessarily know what's going on, I think you could appreciate it. And if you've never read a comic before, you haven't read one since you were a kid, you'll see that comics aren't just people in brightly colored clothing fighting each other. We saw that in the last issue. But this issue right here proves that there's more to comics than what I think the general person believes them to be. And that's what I love about this. However, on the other hand, if there was such a thing as a newsstand where somebody could pick up a comic rather than somebody having to proactively go into a comic book store because there's really nowhere else to buy these things, if they did pick this up out of the blue because they love the cover for some reason and they read this, while I would hope they'd appreciate what they were reading and marvel at the beautiful artwork, I think they would be confused. And this is my other complaint about comics today. It has nothing to do with these creators. Comics today are written for the trade paperback. You cannot pick up an issue in the middle of a storyline and hope to get into it and understand what is going on. The only reason that somebody might enjoy this issue and maybe want to pick up the next one is because of the great writing in it. And they might want to know what the heck is going on here. But if you just take this as a dinner party, a very weird dinner party, and the conversation that is going on between the people at this party, I think you would be intrigued with issue 29 of Batman right now. But that's my problem with comics in general these days. You just can't pick up a comic and sample it right now. You have to be in the middle of a story arc. You have to know a new story arc is beginning. And that's why I think a lot of people who are younger than me don't get into it, because it doesn't seem as friendly as it used to be.
So, okay. So, let's
I know we're getting off topic.
Let's go on a little tangent here then.
Mm-hmm.
Because and I don't think you're wrong, but we live in a time where serialized fiction on television, especially, is the thing. I mean, that's for the most part for stuff that is not, quote unquote reality TV. Although now that I think about it, I mean, even the reality TV is serialized to some degree, right? So if people are used to consuming serialized TV, why do you think that there's this barrier with comic books?
I will concede that people binge watch television. However, think of it this way. If a show like, I'm trying to think of, I don't know, let's say a show like Stranger Things, which is a very bad example, but I can't think of anything right now because of the point I'm trying to make. I'll come up with a good one. Lost, the TV show Lost.
Yeah.
All right. If Lost weren't, now, of course, this shows how old I am and how I consume my media. Okay. So a lot of people who are listening to this are going to start rolling their eyes because they're going to say, nobody does that, Grandpa. Okay. But hear me out. If Lost were in syndication right now and you just happened to catch it while you were channel surfing, which I don't know who does that anymore except me, and you happen to catch an episode of Lost that happened to be season 3, episode 9, you don't know what the heck is going on in season 3, episode 9. And the only way to know what's going on in season 3, episode 9 is to go back to episode 1 of season 1 and catch up. Even a previously on Lost probably wouldn't help you out so much. And I know you have the internet these days and you could binge watch if you wanted to, but why should you have to binge watch I don't know how many episodes are in a season of Lost. Let's say 20. I have to watch 40 episodes or so to understand what happened in the episode I just watched. What was great about comics when I was reading them back in my day, and get off my lawn, kids, get off my lawn. I picked up a comic. Sure, I'll admit I didn't know everything that was going on, but there were enough editor's notes. There was enough exposition. There were enough comments in the letters column or things in the back that would let me know. And remember, back in those days, it wasn't that easy to get a back issue, right? So you kind of had to know what was going on. And you could just pick them up at random at your local gas station, at your local 7-Eleven now, right? So for the things that people were complaining about for that issue number 28, I think those things are necessary now for the way comics are written. They are written for the trade paperback. We have a serialization that's going to be collected together like the Three Musketeers. If people were reading the Three Musketeers in a serialized fashion back in the day when it was first put out, if they caught it in the middle, they wouldn't know what was going on. But now we get to read the Three Musketeers in one book, right? Mm-hmm. That's how we get to consume it today. It's a shame because I think a lot of people miss out on the greatness of what you and I are reading right now. I don't have an answer for it, and I know it'll never change, but that's the curmudgeon in me. And that's the thing that I think that the people that you were talking about that were complaining about, what they were complaining about, isn't so much what's going on with the story. It's really just a product of the times, and they don't want to admit they're curmudgeons like I am.
All right.
Off tangent.
Yeah, this is. I think this is a really interesting concept to discuss. So we may have to come back to this sometime, George, and I don't know, delve into it a little more. I'm
obviously no scholar. I don't have my thesaurus next to me, so I can use different words. I like to think I'm a little better in my vocabulary than some people in higher echelons in our society. Number 45. Sorry. Anyway, go on.
Okay. Did you have anything else to say about issue 28 or 29?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were on issue number 45. I'm sorry. What did you say? No. Okay. That's it.
All right. So next up,
how else can you make a dinner scene so beautiful for 22
right?
pages up? Right?
Exactly. It's a tour de force.
Oh my God.
So issue 30. This is the second Kite Man interlude.
But wait, did we say what the whole point of the dinner was? Here we are. You're letting me go off my tangents, which I hope you edit out of the show. But
I don't know if we did. Now that we're at the end of it, go ahead.
Well, I mean, the whole point of the dinner was Bruce Wayne asked the Joker and the Riddler to state their case, and he was going to put his support, financial support, and very significant financial support behind one side, $1 billion or something like that. And the purpose was he wanted to save Gotham as Bruce Wayne because the Waynes have always helped Gotham out. Mm-hmm. And he didn't see any other way out of this, and he wanted to stop further bloodshed. So he was going to put his support behind one of them so that one person could win this war, mm-hmm. in essence.
Right. And really, even though all the talk on my part about how, this is Bruce Wayne stepping up and doing the heroic bit, so to speak, it was really still a ruse by Batman so that he could assess which one to help.
Exactly.
In the end. So,
and he makes a decision. They state their case, and the Joker's case was the funniest thing. Probably mirrors some of the fandom's opinions about the Joker versus the Riddler these days. I don't know that for sure, but I found it pretty funny. I'm not going to say it here. You could say it here if you want to, Eric. I don't want to spoil everything, but
now I'm curious what it is you're referring to, because I have a line from this dinner party that I thought was interesting. But
go ahead.
Well,
sure.
Let me see. Well, the Joker says in the end, basically, who cares about the Riddler?
That's it, right? Mm-hmm. The Riddler gave a whole he gave a whole speech about why to pick me over the Joker. The Joker, thinks about it for a second and says, "Well, why did anybody care about the Riddler?
Yeah,
I'm the Joker."
Right. And so in my notes, I said, "Indeed, King certainly wants us to care about the Riddler, but I don't know. Yeah. I don't know."
Well, you've told me that the Riddler is not one of your favorites.
No, and no. No, I think we discussed this specifically on your show.
I believe so. Yes.
Where it's like, I don't know. The Riddler to me is just he's a second tier Batman villain that I see King trying to elevate, and I'm just not buying it, especially when we get to the end of this. So, however, like I said, one villain that Tom King is trying to elevate and doing a hell of a job is Kite Man.
Yes.
And so issue 30 is the second interlude, The Ballad of Kite Man Part 2. This is by Tom King. Clay Mann doing the pencils, however. Seth Mann. Inks. Now I'm wondering if they're brothers or father and son. I don't know. I don't know the Manns, or maybe they're not even related. Who knows? Somebody does. I don't. However, Jordy Belair doing colors, which is always awesome. And Clayton Coles is continuing with the letters. Okay, so now, like I said, this is part 2 of the Ballad of Kite Man, and I kind of summarized this story down to one little line, George.
Oh, God. This will be easy then.
Are you a joke, Daddy? Because we get a lot, just like in the first interlude with Kite Man, we get a lot of Kite Man's son's voice in his head. A conversation that they had before all this stuff went on and before his son died at the hands of the Riddler. Mm-hmm. And so he keeps coming back. And really what goes on in here is we're seeing things progress from Kite Man's point of view, and the battle, since Batman has joined Riddler's side, the battle's not going well for the Joker side.
Right.
to the point where we get the Joker standing up in this theater, and it's a splash page of the Joker standing up there making this big rah-rah speech about how great everything is and all this stuff, and then the camera turns on the audience, which, by the way, George, that is the most beautiful interior drawing in a comic book I've ever seen of a theater ever.
All right. I do have to say this about artists in general, and these guys specifically. Look, I'm not a very good artist, but I've drawn things before, and the backgrounds are the most tedious things to do. And whenever I see somebody do a city landscape, I get so impressed. And to see this, okay, so first of all, I kept thinking to myself, boy, wouldn't it be funny if the next scene was exactly what we saw, but it was even better than what I had in my mind's eye as I started to turn the page. So go ahead. I interrupted you. Please describe the 2-page spread.
Well, okay. So, like I said, the camera turns and we see this beautiful interior shot of this theater, and it's an audience of Kite Man.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think: is this? I'm looking at the theater and I'm like, is this like the Ed Sullivan Theater or something like that? Would this have been the view that David Letterman would have had when he used to be at the Ed Sullivan Theater as he would entertain everybody? I'm trying. It almost seems like I've seen this before.
Yeah. It actually reminds me of my high school auditorium.
Does it really?
Although bigger, slightly bigger than that. But yeah, I love it. And in the background, George, I don't know if you noticed this, but they have the playbills on the walls. And one of them is the Joker's face, and it says the joke's on you. Mm-hmm. The joke is on you. And then in the balcony area, there's another one with a playing card that spells out you with a diamond in the middle, and it says the joke's on you, and it looks like a hand holding the card.
Yes.
But with one finger extended more than the others. And it's pointing directly at the middle of the card, the what would be the O in you, but like I said, it's a diamond or a kite shape. I just thought, I missed that the first time through when I read this issue the first time. The second time through, I'm like looking at this stuff going, wait a minute. There's some meta commentary here. This is awesome. So yeah, and the other thing I really love about this issue, George, is just, Kite Man's kind of a loser. He gets beat up all the time,
God,
not just by Batman.
Yeah, you got to feel for this guy though, this whole issue and his whole life.
Yeah. I mean, he's assaulted by the Joker. His life is threatened by Two-Face with a gun to his head, that was a creepy conversation between Two-Face's personas. He's yelled at by the ventriloquist, screamed at. Batman is also punching him down all the time,
right?
But he keeps getting back up.
Right.
There's that 1-page scene where he's kind of, where is it? This is before the theater scene, but he's kind of down on the sidewalk. There's this fence next to I'm guessing a river, but he reaches up and he just every successive panel is just showing him from a distance pulling himself up and then walking away. And that, I think that page really sums up Kite Man for us. He's a loser, but he's not that much of a loser.
Right.
He stands when he's punched down. He gets back up. Despite the fact that he's really a 3rd or 4th tier villain.
And Batman, I hope I'm not jumping ahead here, but Batman basically has to beg him to stay down.
Oh, that, yeah. Yeah. When he's that last, towards the end of the issue where Batman's punching him, he's pleading with Kite Man, don't get back up. Don't make me hit you again.
Exactly.
And that, I mean, just Batman being compelled to say that to one of his adversaries, no matter how losery he is. I mean, that's just, I don't know, that to me, that just says a lot about Batman and the situation and maybe even begrudgingly some respect he has for Kite Man. Maybe I'm giving, or putting a little too much of myself into that situation, but, oh man, I love these interludes. I absolutely love them. So what do you, and I should mention before I ask you this question, that scene towards the end where he's at a table being confronted by Riddler and Batman. But before we see that those other two characters are there, he's in in the dialogue boxes, he's having this conversation with his son that he had before. And on each panel that goes on that page, there's 6 of them, his head lowers a little more, a little more, and
Right.
then you see the tears start to fall down his face. It's just heartbreaking.
Right.
This what this guy goes through.
But he's Kite Man. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. He may be a joke, but he's Kite Man.
That's right.
I don't want to forget to ask you this when we get to the end, when it all ties together. So let me ask you this now, since this is the last part of the ballad of Kite Man portion of the story. Has Kite Man appeared in any other Batman issues since Rebirth started? I thought I had heard he did, but I'm not reading, so I don't know. Do you know?
I think maybe he was mentioned. I don't know if he's actually appeared before he showed up in this storyline, but I could be wrong. I didn't read all of, well, no, I have read of all of the Rebirth, but you know, my memory's not what it used to be. As we discussed on the last episode I was on your show with Peter Rios. Yeah. Who knows? Maybe, I'm sure somebody out there listening to this who reads Batman should be able to tell us, but
because these things are planned out so well, so far in advance that I could have sworn when Rebirth started, and I think that was about the time the Lego Batman movie had come out or something, and which is a movie I actually have not seen yet, but I heard that there were all sorts of obscure villains in there, including Kite Man. And I could have sworn somebody had told me, or I read it or I heard it on a podcast, that he had appeared in one of the early issues of this new run of Batman. And it makes me think, how was he portrayed at that time, if indeed it actually did happen? You know, because this all happened in the past, what we're reading right now. So it would make me curious.
Yeah, I would not put it past King that he put him in one of the stories, and I'm just forgetting for some reason. So,
and I might have been just hearing something more about the movie than the comic or something. My brain is just as befuddled as anybody else's, so I could have that wrong also. Shall we move on to issue 31?
Yep, issue 31. This is done by the same creative team as issues 28 and 29, so I won't bore people with the reading of the names.
Well, you know what? Just to summarize, though, really quick. Out of the 3 issues that we just described right now, I'm not going to go back to what we talked about on episode 185 of my show. Issue 28 was the battle between each side in Gotham. So it was primarily a battle issue and setting the sides. Issue 29 is the dinner one.
Mm-hmm.
Issue 30 is basically a Kite Man story and taking out all of the Joker's accomplices. That's how this was all paced so far.
Right.
So when you think about what you just read in each issue, it is a chapter. They are valid chapters in this 8-part story.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think of it that way, how the pacing was done, genius. I think it's all genius.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think. That's one of Tom King's strengths too, is that he knows how to pace. He knows how to chop up the chapters of the story really well.
Again, that's why I was thinking I could hand somebody the dinner issue to read. They could appreciate it, could be a little confused about what the heck was going on. Would it entice them to move on? I would hope so. But in and of itself, that could be known as the dinner issue to somebody. Mm-hmm. Or what we just read now could be considered the Kite Man issue, the Kite Man survives issue or something. I don't know how somebody would term it, but it's great how each of these has their own. If it were a prose book, you know how when we were kids and we would read a prose book, each chapter would have a title.
Right.
Each one of these issues, rather than just being part 3, part 4, interlude, part 1, whatever, each one could have one of these dinner with Bruce Wayne, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, I didn't even get to the before we go to issue 31, George, I didn't even get to the question I wanted to ask you.
There was a question?
There was. Mm-hmm. Out of the 2 interludes.
I can't tell you what's going on episode 200 of my show. You'll just have to wait till after Thanksgiving.
Looking forward to that, though. Which of the interludes do you think is the stronger? Because we both love both of these so much.
I'm going to admit I think the second part was superior.
Yeah. Okay.
And I don't know if that's a "what have you done for me lately" reaction.
Mm-hmm.
If that's having more under my belt when that part of the story came up. You know, having more meat to the story to support what I just read.
Right.
But I got to admit, Eric, what happens to him in that first part is so heartbreaking. It's almost horrific. It really is. Not that part 2 of the interlude is upbeat or anything like that by any stretch of the imagination. But I think it was the part that I liked better out of the 2.
Yeah. Yeah. I would
for whatever reason. I don't know if I could give you a reason. Mm-hmm.
It would have been interesting to have read them because, I mean, with a little bit of tweaking, maybe. Not maybe. I'm sure Tom King can pull it off. To have read them in the reverse order within the instead of issue 30, the part 2 being issue 30, maybe it was, it wouldn't be part 2, of course, but having that story be the first part of the Ballad of Kite Man and vice versa. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know.
You mean not knowing about his son's fate? Okay. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So I wonder if we would say this exactly the same thing.
Right.
Anyway, because once you then know what happened to his son based on what you've read so far, I mean, how much of a punch gut would that be?
I know.
Or a gut punch.
Right.
Either way.
Although it's still a gut punch either way, though.
It is.
It's just a matter of how much it makes you throw up.
Yeah, that's right.
Put that in the press release.
There you go. That's the tagline for the show, George.
I guess so.
All right. Issue number 31.
All right. Okay. First of all, these covers have been beautiful. I mean, I'm not going to talk about variant covers or the differences between each. I got the regular, what would be considered, I guess, the A cover or whatever they call them these days. Beautiful. No doubt about it. I turned the page on issue number 31, and the Joker's staring right at me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm scared. I'm scared.
I mean, could you imagine opening your eyes and seeing the Joker like this?
No.
Right in front of you? Oh, my God.
And in fact, I think I used the word horrific just a couple of minutes ago. I'm not a fan of horror comics, and there's some horror in here. I'm sorry. There's some horror. And not to go off on one of my tangents, but this is another problem that I have with what we're reading now. Our characters are at such an extreme now, but that's because they've been around for so many years that as each writer has taken them on, as each generation has read each character, oh, that's a little too campy. We've got to make it a little more serious. We have to make it a little more realistic. Well, now we're at the point where these villains have gone so far over the edge that the stories are, I'm not going to say they're not fun anymore, because should the Joker be a fun villain? Should the Riddler be a fun villain? But nothing left to the imagination. The body count. I mean, we're going to be talking about body count probably a little later. You can't go backwards. And I think we said this on the episode you were on with me on my show. And there's that point where now that the villains are at this threshold, I'm not sure I could read them anymore on a regular basis. For instance, I'm not going to keep on with Batman after this. Sorry, anybody who's listening. I read this for the story. And I don't want my characters to stay stagnant, but the violence in these books, when we were kids, we were able to pick up the regular Batman title off the newsstand. If you want to let your granddaughter or my nephew read a Batman story, it's got to be the animated type, the stuff that's geared directly to kids. and let's face it, the Neil Adams stuff. I'm trying to think. Mike W. Barr stuff, the Chuck Dixon stuff. I mean, if you read that stuff, it's violent, and maybe our sensibilities were different. But man, what the Joker does in here to one of his victims, and we see what he does. I don't know. Yeah, I'm old. I'm an adult. I should be able to handle it, but I don't necessarily like it. I know it provides that drama that you need, that sense of menace, that sense, hey, this person means business. But that's the state of comics now, as opposed to the state of the story, and that's why I don't read my superhero comics like I used to.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
No, I can see that. Yeah. So, and the issue opens with him attacking this person.
Yes.
Okay, so despite the fact of what he does to this person,
yeah,
what do you think of the joke?
Oh, the joke.
because it's a 2-page setup for a joke.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I knew there was no way that guy was getting out of it. Folks, I'm not spoiling anything here. It's the Joker. He's not letting you get out of it. I don't get the question though, Eric, and I'm afraid I'm going to answer it wrong. So
I'm just curious.
He's setting the guy up.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there's no doubt about it.
Right. So what do you think? What do you think of this, the setup and the payoff of the joke itself, given these 2 pages? Well, and knowing what happens next.
All right. I direct this to the people that you were saying were critics online. There is suspense built into I don't know how many panels are here, but okay, there's a big splash page of the Joker staring at this guy, but he's staring at you, the reader, in essence. Then there are 8, 9, 10 panels on the next page to set the pacing of the joke. And to me, that's suspense. Then 4 panels of the Joker on the next page getting a little angry, to say the least, right?
A little, yeah.
Yeah. I don't care what those critics say. This is suspenseful. Now, I've said on my show plenty of times I don't like horror movies, but I don't mind suspense. And even though you kind of knew what was going to happen to this poor guy, there's a sense of dread as each panel goes on. And you know what's going to happen, and it's like when that scene comes in the movie, you want to put your hand over your eyes. You know what's coming, but you have to read, and you got to get to that point. If there's a soundtrack, it's building to that crescendo because you know the Joker's going to get mad,
right?
Yeah,
but it's done well.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
You would agree with okay.
In my long-winded way, in my unprofessional long-winded way, that's what I was trying to say. That it was done well. Mm-hmm.
You just don't like the direction of the ultra violence.
I didn't need to see.
Yeah.
Certain things.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But then even then, so, later in this issue, we find out, or we see what he did to this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another joke.
Yes.
So every time there's either the threat of violence or the aftermath of the violence, we get a joke.
And not only that, he keeps telling the jokes. People tell jokes to him. Let's not forget the whole point of this. The man can't smile.
Right.
Mm-hmm. His own jokes don't make him laugh. But this sets up the final meeting between Batman, the Joker, and the Riddler.
Right. Yeah. So we've seen the villains fight each other. The 2 sides. There's a slight detente with Bruce trying to negotiate. Batman picks a side, starts picking off Joker, and then there's the final assault on the Joker.
Right.
So that's what this issue really is about. With Catwoman helping a little bit, which that was kind of neat to see. Although her role in this, besides being the person to whom the story is being told, which is what the whole reason why we're seeing this this 8-part story, is to climb buildings.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's pretty much all she does besides listen to Bruce. She's not a major player in the overall story.
No, but you have to admit it took strength not to pick a side.
Well, she picked a side, just not the villain's side.
Well, but that's what I'm saying, though. But I mean, all the other villains apparently made a choice out of the 2 rather than of the 3.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's something to be said for that. I think that's that's underplayed.
I agree. There was something I just was thinking about. I wanted to ask you. I asked you about the jokes. I really like the jokes, and I don't like the riddles. I hate the riddles.
Well, because you don't like the riddles. Well, I'll admit these riddles are pretty lame.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right. I've seen better riddles from the Riddler and other issues of Batman I've read over the years.
I think I said on episode 185 of my show when you were on that this is like a hashtag not my Riddler, not because of the way he's written, but the way he's drawn. Mm-hmm. I like my Riddler Frank Gorshin, like lanky with the black hair, with the mask and not the top hat, not the bowler and the way he dresses now. Not this cut, looks like an Irish brogue guy who could take care of himself. He should be more like he should be the male Catwoman. He should be able to do the agile type things that she can do.
Yeah,
he's not this bruiser.
A little more of a bruiser. Yeah, I was just going to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And not only that, but I mean, yeah, the Riddler's supposed to be smart. We've always known that.
Yeah.
But my God, the ego on this guy. But that makes total sense. If a guy is that smart and he's towards the bad side of the spectrum, so to speak, that makes sense. Yeah. And that is an aspect of the character I don't know that has been played up as much that I've read as we see here. So it makes sense. I just, like you, I'm kind of like, I'm not responding as well to it.
Right. Well, here's the thing about quote unquote hashtag my Riddler. So my Riddler is the guy who sends Batman and Robin or the Signal or whoever he's palling around with these days, running all around Gotham City, either because has a problem and he is compelled to do so, or he wants to send them on wild goose chases, either to create a red herring or because it just amuses him or whatever the reason is. I know that's not interesting 50 years, 60 years later. I get it. You've got to do other things, but those riddles would be fun. Those would be fun for the reader to read. Whereas these, I think these were just, these were just like gag riddles just for the heck of it. They weren't meant to be anything beyond that. But he does make a comment, and I don't want to jump ahead, but he does make a comment about what he and the other villains would be able to do, but they just choose not to. And we can get to that at the end of the story, but it kind of relates to what I was saying about how the Riddler stories that I remember and I enjoyed, he basically sent Batman on a wild goose chase where he could have basically sent Batman somewhere and it could have been a death trap or something,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he's certainly coming across as a lot more menacing than he's ever been portrayed.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
And like I said, the ego on the guy. And there's a line here I want to just point out real quick because it pays off in the next issue. So the Riddler and Batman are discussing how to assault the Joker's stronghold, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And he's basically Batman's trying to convince Riddler to let him go in alone first.
Mm-hmm.
And Riddler's having nothing to do with it. He says, "I see your plans within plans, Batman." And then he basically tells Batman, we're going to basically use Kite Man.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then at the very end of that scene, Riddler says, well, when he alludes to Kite Man being the person that's going to help with this, Batman says no.
Mm-hmm.
And Riddler responds, "Hell yeah.
Hell yeah."
And so we get that. I think we get hell yeah a lot in this particular issue. I don't remember exactly. It certainly plays itself out in the next one.
Oh, it does.
But so yeah, I just want to point that out because it becomes important later.
That repetition that you love so much.
Yes, yes, and then we get everybody. We get that wonderful comic scene of the Kite Man trying to find out Killer Croc's weight.
Yes.
I just dig King's humor when he does things like that. Let's see here. There's, I mentioned how the jokes that Joker's telling during, when we see what he's done to the poor guy, the how time flies joke that he does, which quite honestly, again, I missed that the first time through. It was like, why is he telling this joke? And then finally the second time I read this issue, I totally missed that visual. And it was very good. But what I liked about that scene was that we see the Joker constructing the joke.
Yes.
He starts and then stops and starts again because he's like a comic figuring out the best way to tell the joke. And that's not something I don't think I've ever seen the Joker doing in any issue of Batman I've ever read. And I thought that's a different take.
Right.
And maybe that's just King being King, but he's portraying the Joker in a way that is perhaps tied to the story because the Joker he's not laughing.
Right, exactly.
And so he's trying to construct trying to construct this joke that will help himself be the Joker again. I don't know. Maybe I'm putting too much into it at this point, but
no, I mean, it makes sense in that context that he's lost his mojo, at least in that area, and it defines him. So if he's lost it, now he's frustrated that defining part of his personality is gone.
Right.
And he's dying to get it back. Pardon the pun.
And then the jokes continue because they finally make their assault on the Joker's the building he's in, burst through the window because of the kites that everyone's flying through.
Right.
And then Riddler starts telling a joke, a knock joke.
Oh, that's right.
Right. And it's it's about cows. Knock knock. Who's there? Cows go. Cows go. Who? Riddler says, no. You, what is it? You twit to the Joker. You twit. Cows go moo. And the twit thing I emphasize because in issue 29, the dinner issue, I believe the Joker calls the Riddler twit.
Oh, is that why that was emphasized in here? I didn't figure it out. Okay. That makes sense.
Yes. And I think the Riddler actually says it again somewhere else. Maybe I'm wrong.
All right, but see the layers here in this, which is why when one reads this, if you folks haven't read this yet, I know these days people probably don't get back issues. Maybe you get it digitally, whatever, but I would say collected, this would read so well. I mean, here we have the issues. We could just read them all whenever we want. But if somebody's going to read it for the first time in some collected edition, which we know inevitably will come out, get it. Read it, enjoy it, reread it, and in fact, I hope there's some sort of annotation in the back that casts some light on some things that you and I are talking about right now, or that we talked about back on my show when you were on.
Yeah, exactly. This is King. This is his strength. If you read his Vision miniseries, if you've read Sheriff of Baghdad. What's the one he's doing right now? Mr. Miracle. I have, and all the stuff on Grayson, all the stuff that I've seen him working towards his particular things he likes to employ from a narrative standpoint. I'm recognizing this stuff and I really react well to it. I really like him as a writer.
But see, things like that when he works, and again, there's no way he's not working closely with his artists.
No.
When they work in tandem like that, it's cinematic. It's like watching a movie, which is why the comment that those people made online about trying to portray 5 days in two-page spreads, I don't know what those guys are talking about. It's a comic book. How else are you going to make something so static move so fluidly? I thought it was great, and that's why I can't understand complaints like that. Now, of course, my complaints I understand, but again, they're not complaints about the specifics of this. They're complaints about comics as a whole right now.
Yeah.
I know. I'm a hypocrite. Hold on. I got my hypocrisy pills right here. I know. I understand, folks. I get it.
Take 2 and call me in the morning.
That's right.
I mentioned before how the Riddler, I see your plans within plans, Batman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, except he doesn't.
He does not, no.
And so turns out this whole time that Batman's been playing Riddler because Kite Man
hell yeah.
rigged all the kites so that when the Riddler takes down the Joker with his pals with him, they turn on Batman now.
Of course.
Right? And then, he just turns and says Kite Man, and Kite Man says, which I thought was weird. I expected him to say hell yeah, but all he says is Kite Man. But, I was thinking about that, George. I was thinking, he says Kite Man, not in the sense of, yeah, I'm Kite Man. It's yeah, Kite Man, I got you. You didn't expect it. Kite Man did it. So I thought that was a nice poke in the eye to the Riddler.
Yep. And
especially considering what Riddler did to his son. Yeah. Right,
exactly. And it shows his intelligence because what he developed to dispatch of Riddler's accomplices is pretty ingenious.
Yeah, what did they call that? That was jet-propelled inverse parachutes.
Yes.
Chuck Brown's own invention. Instead of slowing your fall, they quicken your ascent. And then Batman had Alfred in the Bat Blimp.
Well, of course, because where else would Alfred be?
The Bat. Now I really want to know, have we ever seen a Bat Blimp before? I'm sure we have.
Well, sure. I mean, you've seen every Super Bowl for the past couple of years. Right? Isn't that what's providing the aerial coverage?
Is that Alfred's other job once a year?
Well, Goodyear lost the contract years ago, so now the Bat Blimp provides aerial coverage of the Super Bowl. And so this year, when we see Justin Timberlake perform, whenever the wardrobe malfunction takes place, we will get the aerial view of that. Yeah.
And to punctuate what I just said. The next panel after all the other villains have been dispatched. Riddler says, Kite Man. Batman says, plans within plans, just again to stick it to Riddler a little more. And then, Kite Man starts to say, hell yeah. And then Riddler punches him out. Right. Riddler's very physical in this story. Again, the bruiser comment that you made, it's not, not the Riddler I'm used to.
And thus ended Kite Man. And actually ends the issue because now it's the Joker, Batman, and the Riddler.
Right.
And part 5 has ended.
What we have been building up to this entire time, really.
Exactly.
Well, just besides what the answer to Batman's question to Selina is.
Yeah, it's easy for one to forget that he even asked because his story now is...
Yeah.
All right, now we're going to get to issue number 32.
Right.
The final chapter. We heard what the haters had to say about the pacing of the passage of 5 days. We have talked about the cinematic way that some of the issues have been. Talk to me about how you felt about the first, 5 pages here? 4, 5. I'm flipping through the book. The first 5 pages before we really get into the meat of the conclusion of this story. Right. How did they affect you?
So most of this is silent.
Yes.
Most of it? None of it. It's totally silent. There's no dialogue.
Right.
Whatsoever. Just people reacting. And we get a rare moment of Batman being vulnerable, of showing someone else how hurt he is. And you have to remember, this is him relaying something that happened years ago.
Right.
To him and involving him, right? And yet it still affects him this much today that he's, he puts his head in his hands. This is not a very Batman-like gesture on Bruce's part. And he allows Selina to caress him, to comfort him. And then you turn the page, and that's just the first page. You turn the page and you get this 2-page spread of not all, a lot of the victims of this war, just ordinary people caught in the crossfire.
Right.
And you realize, holy cats, this is, this affects, real people.
Yeah.
The real people of Gotham, right?
Right.
And to see all the smiling faces of these characters and you're reading the little blurbs that explain how they died.
Right, how they were dispatched, right? They were dispatched in their own way, right? Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. And did you read all those, George? Did you go through and read every one?
I did, and I recognize some of those names too.
Well, yeah, there's that too, but just some of the ways that these people died is just ugh.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of them. So which one was it? There were two in particular. A lot of them shot by or stabbed by or strangled by, burned by in case of Firefly.
Sure.
Sure, I could kind of get, given the villains, I understand that kind of stuff. But there were two that were really weird to me.
Okay.
And they both, these are two different villains, but they did the same thing.
Oh.
They ate their victims.
Oh, one was one of the Tweedles, right?
Tweedledee.
Uh-huh.
Yes, which that was weird.
Uh-huh.
And then Man-Bat.
Oh, Man-Bat. Huh. Well, what about the one who was just simply broken by Killer Croc?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
God. Oh, horrible.
Well, talk about the names you recognized.
Well, if anybody had an opportunity to listen to episode 185 of my show, the George and Tony Entertainment Show, when Eric was on, or happened to read the first 3 parts of this story, they would have seen or heard, depending on how you found out, that 3 gangsters that were killed in one of those issues had names of people who host the 11 O'Clock Comics podcast. Well, Tom King is friends with a lot of podcasters. He's been a fan before he's been a creator, a professional creator anyway, and he has made friends with podcasters. So towards the bottom, in the bottom row of this list of pictures of victims of this war, we have in the bottom right a bunch of people who are associated with Comic Geek Speak. And one of them happens to be Eric's co-host on the Legion Project. You're not saying anything. Why is that?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just looking at the page.
Oh, okay.
As you were talking.
Well, the thing is, they're not necessarily likenesses of the people, although one of them I think looks like Brian Pants. I think Pants.
Yeah.
Doesn't Pants kind of look like that?
Kind of looks like that, yeah.
Yeah. And he was crushed by Grundy, so he has that. Well, okay, so should we just list them all? We have
Yeah.
We have Kelly Shane, burned by Firefly for Shane Kelly.
Right.
We have Murdoch stabbed by the Joker for Adam Murdo.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Pants from from Comic Geek Speak, he was crushed by Grundy. Bran Deemer, I would guess it is Brian Deemer, who was shot by the Riddler. And I'm going to skip over this one right now. We're going to go to James D. The late Jamie D. was shot by Deadshot. And now let's go back to your co-host of the Legion Project, the host of the Daily Rios, Pete Brioche.
That was awesome. Who was strangled by Two-Face.
Yes. So Peter Rios has the honor and the distinction of being strangled by Two-Face. I was looking for other podcasters, and the only other one that I found, and if you found any others, let me know. I found Daryl Tanner,
right,
who I think is related to Daryl Taylor from the Taylor Network and from the No Apologies podcast. Did you find any others that were podcasters anyway?
I'm sure there are.
Yeah, I don't know,
but I don't recognize them. Yeah, the same exact ones you found are the ones that I recognize as well.
I figured, you know what? I'll bet you there are other people here from the Taylor Network that I'm just not pointing out, that I'm just not discovering right off the bat. And some might even be fellow writers and artists, but none of them are real true likenesses. I think the pictures were done first, and then, he just said whatever name he wanted to put in there.
Yeah. But that's still cool. I mean, even though it kind of draws me out of the story because I recognize some of these likenesses, but it's because exactly. It pulls me out of the story a little bit because really this is supposed to be a very poignant 2 pages because of all these people who have died because of the stupid war.
Exactly.
Between these two, right?
Senseless, all senseless. I mean, they're always senseless, but you're putting faces and names to the numbers.
Yeah, exactly. And then the next page is just the 2 villains of Batman kind of squaring off, via the looks on their faces. But that's just the title page, where the War of Jokes and Riddles conclusion. We get the credits, and then we go back to Bruce and Selina continuing that first page, where, like I said, Selina's comforting Bruce, and they just kind of look at each other. Bruce takes her hand and kisses it. I just, that moment of tenderness between those 2 characters, especially coming from him. I really dug it. I think King is really drawing out the Bruce, like I said earlier, the Bruce Wayne aspect of Batman more than I've seen in, God, I don't know how many years. I know I'm repeating myself a little bit, but it's very well done. In fact, I almost think I kind of prefer Bruce Wayne over Batman in this story.
Yeah. They are 2 distinct personalities, it seems. Well, I mean, we're seeing a younger version of him here.
The Batman one.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
That's true. You kind of forget that along the way because it just seems like one more battle between Batman, the Riddler, and the Joker. But really, it was some years ago, however many it was.
Right.
Because I think he did in one of the previous issues. Bruce says to Selina that he was a year away from kicking the tree, which is a reference to Batman Year One. And so, this is him a year plus into his career. And, he hadn't figured out everything. He wasn't the Bat God that he is now.
I see. And we have to also remember that this is early in the career of all these villains then, too.
That's true.
Right.
Yeah.
So whatever happens after this is kind of based on this is a base. That was a poor way of saying it, but this is the base from which everything else comes from, at least in this iteration of Rebirth and Batman and the villains and stuff.
Yeah.
The next 4 pages are just silent battle. I mean, all you get is a sound effect. I mean, if you want to even consider it's like Batman 66 with the pows and the thuds and the...
I was wondering if you were going to say something like that. Yeah.
And
I was trying to see if there was some sort, if it was more than just, because they use pow a lot. Whenever Batman is punching one of the other guys, it's pow. And so I was looking at the other sound effects thinking, are they just recreating sound effects from the Batman TV series? And I don't know, maybe they are, but there really aren't that many other ones.
Right.
They look more like, traditional comic book sound effects.
Well, here's
as
the thing.
opposed to something from the show.
I'd have to look back, but traditionally, at least in today's comics, you don't necessarily get the sound effect anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. And I don't think we had a sound effect throughout this whole story. I could be wrong. I'd have to look back. But whenever there was punching or fighting or because one could argue then it takes away from the drama of today's adult themed comics. But I think they worked well here. And there were a few grunts and groans as people were getting hit. I'll tell you what I did appreciate. While the characters get bloody noses or a bloody lip, I appreciated not seeing the teeth flying and the blood spatter flying like we see in a lot of battles these days. When somebody gets a punch, it has to look realistic.
Yeah.
I kind of appreciated that we're reminded it is a comic book, and maybe that has something to do with the POWs being in there. I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah. That's true.
Because let's face it, we've seen more brutal depictions of fistfights in comics.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Especially in Batman comics. We get the word twit again. This time with Riddler calling Batman a twit.
Oh, yes.
And the Riddler at this point is now just more interested in seeing if his entire plan to make the Joker laugh, because if he does, if he's able to do this, he's the better villain, I guess, or he's proving how smart he is.
Right. Well,
or
he solved the riddle. He solved the riddle of the Joker.
Okay,
at least that's the way I read it.
And so it's like, yeah, Batman, you beat me, but get out of the way. I'm trying to see the thing that I've been working towards, if it's paid off or not.
That's right. Move your freaking large thigh, your muscular thigh. Get out of my way, so I can't see the Joker.
And then for several pages here, it becomes a conversation. Well, more of a soliloquy by the Riddler, and Batman's just kind of standing there. Because like I said, it becomes Riddler kind of explaining himself, or lamenting his plan, how it's not paid off because the Joker's not laughing. And this is at this point, the Joker starts telling a joke, another knock joke, and it goes across 3 pages. Because the Riddler keeps talking and talking and talking and talking, much like I am. And the Joker's telling the joke and doing both parts, right? Knock, knock, who's there, all this stuff.
Right.
And it's another cow joke. So the Riddler told the Joker a cow joke before in the previous issue. Now it's the Joker's turn. And interestingly, so here, the panel here, the Riddler says, "Didn't you get it?" Talking to the Joker, "Didn't you get it?" And the Joker says, "Incompetent interrupting cow who?"
Mm-hmm.
And given that we've seen Batman, the plans and within plans comment from the Riddler, and Batman being one step ahead of the Riddler, even though the Riddler during this rant, the Riddler goes on, he's basically making his case about how smart he is and how much he's planned and what he's accomplished. And damn it, I acknowledge that I'm basically, this is how I read it, acknowledge how smart I am. And even the Joker is saying, "You're an idiot."
Right.
Which I loved. I love that.
But as the panels alternate and Batman is hearing the Riddler explain his side and how what he did and what he feels he did, and all the machinations that he had in the background, everything was his plans within plans. Do you notice in the middle of pages aren't numbered here, but in the middle of his explanation to the Joker, Batman says, Did you notice that?
Yes.
Now, it's not spelled like what Rorschach does in Watchmen, but isn't that pretty much what he says? Am I reading too much into this with Doomsday Clock coming up and all that stuff?
Maybe. That's interesting.
See, I don't think Tom King or any of the artists do anything by accident. It's all planned. It's all intricately planned.
Well, and in that same panel too, this is the Riddler really belittling Batman.
Sure.
You're not a challenge, but you're fun. The reason we keep you around, all of us villains keep you around, is because you're fun.
And that's what I was alluding to earlier.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but it's interesting because in a previous issue, what do they want? They want Batman, and and then both of them describe how they want to kill the Batman.
Yep.
So his Riddler's explanation at this point kind of goes against what we have
Right.
seen from before,
Mm-hmm.
which again, totally makes sense to me because the Riddler's really just trying to stroke his own ego.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And appear like he's the smartest guy in the room. Much like I do when I do a podcast. So then we get to the emotional core of this entire story.
Right. Why he's telling
Selena this,
yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of this sequence?
Okay. First of all, it was well, no, I don't think it was too surprising because you kind of see how the panels are laid out as the discussion is being had. You see Batman's head go down and down and down a little bit, and as the conversation goes on, and I guess the weight of everything is too much for him, and he sees a knife. We could talk about this, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do it.
He sees a knife on the table, and he grabs it, and then there's a full page spread, and he makes no apologies for it, no excuses. He tells Selena that he was in his right mind and he was taking a lunge to kill the Riddler. No doubt about it. That's what was on his mind. That's what he was going to do.
Right. But before we go any further.
Yep, not going to say anything.
So yeah, like you said, he picked up the knife and he's going towards Riddler. Riddler immediately recognizes what's going to happen here.
Mm-hmm.
And he yells out no, but Batman says,
Hell
yeah.
You know you have the title for your episode.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's a good one. And like what you pointed out about how he notices the knife and you see him looking down and the way that the Yanin constructed those particular panels was wonderful
Mm-hmm.
to accentuate what Batman is thinking.
Yep.
Up to that point, and then layered on top of that, you have the dialogue boxes again telling us what happened in issue 27, the first Ballad of Kite Man
Mm-hmm.
interlude about Kite Man's son, right? And so that is that's with all this stuff that's going on, that's what's going through Batman's mind.
Exactly.
This is why he picks up the knife.
Mm-hmm.
And then that again, I'm going to, props to Yanin for constructing this full page, a splash page of Batman stabbing towards the Riddler because it looks like he stabbed him right in the face. It's well done. Well done.
Uh-huh.
You see a little bit of blood coming
off.
It's
camera work.
It's
camera work.
It's so good.
It's the misdirection of a well planned out trailer, right? It's a perfect picture. And the text, the dialogue that goes along with it in the caption boxes, it's perfect.
Mm-hmm. I understood the choice I'd made. I thrust the knife out to kill the Riddler. And this is not our Batman.
No, and again, early
Batman
in his
doesn't
career,
kill.
though, right? Early in his career. Not the Batman we have today. So again, he was still a young Batman. But he had his code that he was living by even back then.
Well, even the really early, of course, the really early appearances of Batman, right? He had a gun and he used it.
Right, but isn't that what retconned out anyway?
Yeah, but I mean,
thank you, Crisis.
Despite that, there is precedence for an early Batman using extreme measures to take care of villains.
Right.
And given the what's happened so far with Kite Man's son and the choices Batman had to make, joining these villains to stop the greater war, he reached his breaking point.
Yeah, right.
Fortunately,
I have a comment about that at the end. I have a comment about that. Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, of course, the Joker saves them both.
Yeah.
So to speak.
Mm-hmm.
One literally and one metaphorically. Why is that so funny? Why is that the thing?
Okay, well, why don't you
explain what happened? Well, so Joker puts out his hand to stop Batman from stabbing Riddler, and the knife goes through Joker's hand.
Right.
And all he says, he looks at that and says, "That's funny," and then starts laughing, the Joker laugh that we've been waiting 8 issues to see again.
A full page, again, a splash page with all the laughter in the background. Batman on his knees, head bent. Riddler standing, his head's bent. Dead man with half an arm on the ground.
Time flies.
And the Joker laughing. All right. Do you recall a little story called The Killing Joke?
Mm-hmm.
Do you
Probably
recall?
Not as well as you're going to recall it right now.
Well, wasn't the whole point of that? I'll admit I haven't read it in decades, but wasn't the whole point of that to show that all it takes is a very bad day to make somebody go over the edge or something like that?
Yeah, that's true. Very true.
I think that is in essence what just happened. The Joker, Batman had a very bad day, or a very bad couple of months, or however long this war went on. He reached his breaking point and he snapped. And the Joker is laughing because the Batman succumbed to a very bad day. That's the way I look at this.
Okay.
But I know that has nothing to do with it, but that's exactly how I read this. This is exactly the Killing Joke punchline.
I think that's a valid point. I guess maybe I'm taking it too literally that,
No, please.
I was looking at it looking, his hand, he gets stabbed through the hand. I'm thinking, what is that? At first I thought it was like a callback to something.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't remember anything having to do with this particular story. And so then the next thing I thought of was, it's funny because all this conflict between Batman and these two characters over the last year or so far at this point in the story, and Joker saves Riddler. And that's funny to him. But the way you explain it...
Well, because I think it's more like he beat the bat.
Yes.
That's what I think is going on.
Despite Batman's apparent altruism, his heroism, he's just a guy who, like you say, had a bad day.
Yeah. I mean, let's face it. Looking at the structure of that panel, if one were to think about it, one of those haters that you were talking about earlier that I keep referencing, all he has to do is pull the knife out of his hand and go after Batman. Batman is at his most vulnerable right now. But like the Riddler said, we like to keep you around, which again negates everything from the first part, although one could read that to be the one wants to prevent the other from actually killing.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And because we do like having him around, I don't want you to beat me to it. It's more like I don't want you to do it because I want him still around.
Don't they actually talk about that specifically about they are the ones that deserve to get to kill Batman, or they should be able to kill Batman, not
right?
the
But
other
I think it goes beyond that, because then that would negate what the Riddler said here about, I could have killed you a long time ago, but I like, it's fun to have you around.
Yeah.
I think that the truth of the matter is the negotiations that were going on were more, I don't want you to kill him, not because it will make me unhappy that you did it first, because I want to do it. It's more, I don't want you to kill him because I like having him around. He's a good foil. He makes my existence fun. So one could read that into it also. True.
Very true. Okay. And so then now we're back to the present. We're going to get the big payoff here in a page or two, or a few pages anyway. But there's a point where Bruce says, "What separates me from them is a hand on a knife, his hand."
Okay, now what do you think about that whole thing about what separates the hero from the villain argument in general? What do you think about that?
What, you just mean you're referring to the lines that the heroes don't cross type thing,
right?
Or
in general, right? Before we get into the specifics here, what do you think about that whole concept that let's say this was a successful thrust of the knife right? And the Riddler was dispatched. He was gone as a result of the Batman stabbing him in the face, which is what it looked like had happened. Do you feel that as far as the whole hero-villain things go, especially with the lines that the villains have crossed at this point in our reading history, that really is something that our heroes should be concerned with, especially somebody as gritty, especially somebody who is protecting a city as gritty as Gotham City?
Yeah, that's always the eternal question with Batman, and in fact today,
a lot of heroes.
When I was, but today, yesterday or today, I saw someone tweeting about the Joker and how he should have been killed off years ago, and I thought that was interesting to say, because yes, from a realistic standpoint, our society would probably very easily and very willingly would have put that guy to death long ago.
A lot of Arkham inmates would have been put to death a long time ago.
Yeah, right. But that's not, this is just my
Where would your stories be, though?
Yeah, exactly. But my heroes to me don't do those kind of things, and so if we ever get heroic characters that do kill, I actually don't find anything interesting about them. It's why I don't like the Punisher. For example, there are others, but if Batman actually killed, that to me, that fundamentally changes the character to the point where he's no longer a character I wish to read about. So that's, generally speaking, that's how I see it. What I find really interesting about what Bruce says there, though, is I think fundamentally changes the character, but in an interesting way, because his soul was saved by the Joker.
Right. And you're laughing.
It's crazy.
And see, you're laughing. Yeah. That's why it's funny.
Yeah. It's that I really hope that they get into that more. Either King doing it or somebody else should pick up on it, because we've had decades of the Joker. Like I used this phrase earlier, but Batman and Joker being two sides of the same coin. And we got just a few more pages here. I don't know. I think unless you have something else that you want to point out, George, we can even just skip to her answer.
Sure. Yeah.
And then just kind of talk about that a little bit.
It's really just 4 pages leading up to her answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, it's framed by a cinematographer. That is our artist.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a conversation between two people in a bedroom at night, the lighting coming through the window. It should be nominated for an Academy Award for cinematography, the way it's laid out. It sets the tone. It sets the mood. It's a drama in 4 pages and however many panels it winds up being.
Yeah. And she says, the whole thing about what's the difference between a joke and a riddle, which is what the Joker. So Batman goes to the Joker and says, why did you do that? Basically. And he said, Joker's response was, do you know the difference between a joke and a riddle? And so Selina echoes that and basically says the answer is, who cares? Right. Who cares?
Right.
It doesn't matter what those crazy people are saying about this stuff. What matters is what you're doing. This is how I'm taking it. You are who he made. Fine. I'm whatever the horrors of my life made me. Fine. But honestly, in the end, she says, who cares?
Exactly.
And then we get the answer to the question that has fueled this entire 8-issue run.
Right.
And she turns him down.
That's right. Thanks for joining us, everybody. See you next time.
So okay. I mean, the idea that Batman's getting married, I really don't care about that one way or the other.
Yeah, no. I hope they don't use it as an excuse to get rid of Catwoman.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
I mean, given the right creative team, which if Catwoman is going to play a major role, with King writing and the art team that we have, I say yes. Let's bring it on. Let's do it. But yeah, if here's the comic book cynic in me, George. They're just going to annul this eventually, right?
Well, I mean, Superman and Lois are married. It carried over from pre-Flashpoint after the New 52. This could be good. Everybody's been talking about it for decades that the two of them should get together. Now, I'm trying to remember when Spider-Man and the Black Cat were an item from, well, I don't have another word to say, so I'll call them the distinguished competition. Was the Black Cat doubling as a superhero, but still doing some petty theft, cat thievery here and there?
Oh yeah, she is the Catwoman of the Marvel universe, isn't she?
I think. I just don't remember how the relationship was. I know they used to do a little crime fighting together, but I could have sworn she actually still committed some crimes on the side. But
I think
don't
so.
know.
Yeah.
I could see the same thing happening here, which could make an interesting dynamic. I'm not sure. We'll have to see how it plays out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm looking forward to it. Even though this proposal thing started this whole story, I mean, the really interesting thing is what happened at the end between Batman and the Joker.
Yes.
Right. So even though the Riddler played a huge part in this, he would hate this.
Yep.
He's really not the most important bit of this.
He proved your point.
He's the catalyst, really, and that's it. So, this story to me works on so many different levels that I really liked it, even though it's kind of weird because the portrayal of some of the characters is not what I'm used to. That's not to say that it's a bad thing. In fact, I think there's been a lot of good additions to these characters in this reveal. I am curious what they're going to do now that we know this story. Are we now going to see how this plays out in the modern setting in the book and between the characters? Because I don't know that we haven't seen that before because we didn't know about this story, right?
True.
Even though the Riddler, even in Scott Snyder's run on Batman in the New 52, trying to elevate that character. I don't know why do people like the Riddler so damn much? Anyway, it was quite evident that we didn't, you obviously didn't have this, this backstory to it.
Right.
But that's the fun of comics because they add these layers and then build on them and then add more. That's one of the reasons why I love comics so much. But, what did you think of this ending, this resolution to this 8-issue arc?
I'm not going to say that I knew she was going to say yes. I think I just hoped she would say yes.
Oh, really? And why do you say that?
Why did I think? I hoped?
Why did you hope that she would say yes?
Because I'm one of those people who, for decades, thought it would be a good idea.
Oh, okay.
And I like the fact that it's happening. And when I had heard, like I said, I'm not a regular reader of the Batman title, and I'm not going to carry on with it. Again, my curmudgeonly nature, if you ever listen to my show, it's more a matter of cost and space and things of that nature rather than not thinking the story's interesting or liking the creative team. It's just there's just so much money to spend on the comics, and I collect what I collect right now, and I'm not going to get involved. But I was interested enough in this story to purchase it and to talk about it with you for a couple of hours between my show and yours. I can't picture how the story would be, although I guess it would create a lot of drama if she said no. But the way the whole thing was being set up, I couldn't see how, no matter what the culmination of the story was going to be, that it would affect her that much that she would say no. It's very clear, especially in the beginning parts of this story, when they first introduce her in the story, when she first appears in this particular war of jokes and riddles, they obviously have had a relationship for years. And this just seems like the natural progression, and it seems like it's overdue.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And just a stray thought here too, and also to key into something you said earlier in regards to Superman with Lois.
Mm-hmm.
This is my late Bronze Age comic book infancy coming into play, but
Sure.
it's almost like Earth 2 is happening, because back then
Mm-hmm.
Superman and Lois were married, Batman and Selena were married.
Yes.
Even though that ended tragically.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But so, yeah, it's really weird now that we're 30 plus years beyond that point in comic book history, that history is repeating itself.
Yeah. Very interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
Where are we going to go next?
And like you said, you hope that future creators build upon this relationship between the Joker and the Batman. But supposedly there are 3 Jokers right now.
Right. And they didn't even touch on that here.
Right. So eventually, who knows, maybe DC said, you know what, you can do whatever the heck you want, because after this whole doomsday clock rebirth thing is over, it ain't going to matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope it matters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I
see, I'm not the only one who's cynical. You got a little curmudgeon in you too, Eric.
A little bit. Sometimes it comes out. I
voice it more than you do. I just don't. I don't articulate it very well.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's comics, and things will out, and I try to enjoy them as best I can without being too cynical about it.
But I was happy with the result.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. In fact, I've said this multiple times now during the course of this talk, but having reread the issues as I did, I just got more and more out of it. And that to me is a hallmark of an excellent story. Whether you like the some particulars or not, or the whole answer to the question, which is the impetus of the story, doesn't matter. It was a well-told story. And I really appreciate that.
And I think that's what made me buy 8 issues of a comic I don't normally buy.
Yeah.
I was drawn in by the creative team and the elevator pitch of what was going on. Now, at the time, I didn't know this was all a story being told to Catwoman prior to her answering a marriage proposal. I don't think when this was first solicited, we all knew that. And I am thankful that these issues came out every 2 weeks rather than every month, because we would have had to have waited 8 months to get the answer that we would have waited for, right? So,
wow, George, I think that is the first time I've heard anybody compliment a double shipping situation.
Oh yeah, in this case, I appreciated it very much.
Okay. All right. Any other thoughts about the War of the Jokes and Riddles?
No, but I will. Yes, I will say this. I'm probably going to read it again, not because I'm going to have another conversation about it, but just because I want to enjoy it again.
Yeah, yeah. This is I'm sure that they'll come out with a nice hardcover of this.
I'll tell you, for a guy who's trying to budget his comic book reading and his comic book finances, if this is released in a way where there is a lot of extra material, not just sketches and thumbnail explanations and stuff, but real true explanations as to what went into this, how the planning was, because these things don't just materialize like that. When Rebirth happened, the germ of this idea, if not the full plot of this particular story, had to have existed. There's no way that this just came up 12 issues into this run. He had to have an idea that A, he was going to have Batman propose, and B, there had to be something in his past that he was ashamed of, that he felt concerned enough that might affect the answer, and he had to share this information before he got that answer, before he let her answer him. You know that. So here we are, what? Is it 2 years into Rebirth?
Yes. Something like that.
A year and a half or so, a year and a half, 2 years, whatever.
Time flies, George.
But the plans for that had to be what? 6 months in advance of that.
Maybe, yeah.
So this story has been, percolating in his mind all this time.
Mm-hmm.
And now that it sees fruition, and who knows what other stories are to come from this. This is amazing, and it's worth a third, fourth, fifth reread.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So kudos to the team.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you, George. I think we should close out now because the listeners don't know this, but we've been talking for longer than I intended to keep you, and it's really late for where you are.
Well, let's put it this way, Eric, just to let everybody know, we've been talking so long that the Hallmark Channel's Countdown to Christmas movie marathon is now over.
Good callback. All righty. Thank you, George, for joining me on this conversation.
No, thanks. Thanks, man. I love being on the show. I love you. I love talking comics with you, man.
Yeah. And this whole idea of this crossover between our two shows and talking about this story, it was just perfect. So I couldn't pass up this opportunity to do this with you.
And let's not forget, everybody, available for the holidays will be the hardcover compilation of both of our episodes. And we'll have annotations in there and special extras for you.
No.
No, it'll be DVD and Blu-ray.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Dude, that's too much work. I can't do that. Alrighty. I think we're getting a little loopy now.
So we'll have we'll have director's commentary from Peter Rios, your co-host for the Legion Project.
Oh my God.
And he'll tie everything together.
And speaking of that, I'm sure that my fine listeners have many things about this particular story that they want to bring up that perhaps you or I did not, because we were just riffing on the things we liked or not, and there's some stuff that I had in my notes that I didn't bring up because it wasn't part of the flow of our conversation. Mm-hmm. So, if people would like to continue that conversation, and I highly encourage them to do so,
mm-hmm.
they can contact us. George, you're on Twitter, right?
I am at George and Tony.
Right. And if people go back and that'd be kind of funny. They listen to this and then go back and listen to your show. Even though we said they should go listen to episode 181 of the George and Tony Entertainment Show first.
185. 185.
Oh, sorry, I said 181.
Okay.
185.
Yeah, you're not on 181. I mean, they could listen to 181, but it won't do them any good in context to this episode.
That's very true, but it'd still be an entertaining episode. But George, remind them where they can find episode 185.
Well, the George and Tony Entertainment Show is on iTunes and at georgeandtony.com. Thank you, Eric. Oh, we're also on SoundCloud and a plethora of podcast apps.
Okay. Oh, that reminds me. Yeah. I'll get to that in a second. So like I said, they can leave comments, tweet at us. They can leave comments at my blog, longboxreview.com, or email me at longboxreview@gmail.com. I just recently got my show, Longbox Review, on TuneIn, if people use that service.
TuneIn, what is that? Is that an app?
It's it's an app. It's kind of like a radio type thing, but they also have podcasts on there.
Oh, good.
SoundCloud, but limited, because I'm not going to sign up for their paid service. So it's like one episode at a time.
I have to admit, I'm only on SoundCloud because of the network I'm on. I am on the Realm Network, and they have control of that.
Well, that's really nice.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another one that I'm forgetting at the moment. TuneIn and iHeartRadio. I'm on.
You're on iHeartRadio?
iHeartRadio now.
Well, congratulations to you. That's pretty good.
I don't know if it's worthy of congratulations, but they were gracious enough to accept me. I did also apply to be on Spotify, but they've not returned my email. So anyway, go subscribe on iTunes. That's probably the easiest thing to do. But anyway, I really appreciate people listening to the show. I encourage everyone to go listen to George's show, George and Tony Entertainment Show. I miss Tony George. I can't wait to hear him again.
He'll be on soon. Like I said, episode 200 is coming up. Might be a reason for him to come back.
Maybe. That's a good idea.
Tease, tease, tease.
But even without Tony, you have a lot of really cool people coming on and talking about all sorts of things on your show. I really enjoy it. And I know other people will too, if they're interested in other items of pop culture-ness besides comic books.
Thank you.
So let's leave it at that, George. Thanks again. And I will talk to everyone later.